Welcome to Money 911, where we unravel the threads of success and weave them into actionable wisdom. I'm Chris Miller, your host. Today, we're honored to host Michael King, a transformative force in executive coaching, from the pulpit to the boardroom. Michael has journeyed through diverse landscapes of leadership, distilling his experiences into the potent Teams methodology. He's the architect behind Teams.coach and the newly launched Gawker Traffic Agency. Please welcome Michael King. All right, Michael, it's a pleasure and honor to have you here with us today on Money 911.
Hey, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And, I find it so interesting that you've transitioned from ministry to Fortune 500 leadership coaching. And for some reason, I would always think it'd be the other way around. Right? So how has your spiritual background shaped your approach to guiding leaders through moral and ethical dilemmas in the corporate world?
That's a great question, and I think when I started this experiment, it happened kind of organically, in that one of the big kind of the linking points between like being in ministry and also coaching leaders is that everybody has to be responsible for a vision of the thing that they feel like that they're called to, like the vision for their company, the vision for their life, but they need to be able to think bigger than they've ever thought before. And I think that that's where one of the big connecting points on this experience was for me, was that you can't do that alone. Like having trusted advisors kind of in your circle or people that are surrounding you consistently be able to help you see what is possible and helping you get your mind in the right space for you to be able to not necessarily play it safe all the time. And now the moral and ethical part of doing business and things like that always comes down to this engine that's within us. So what are the things the things that we hear determine the things that we're thinking about. The things that we're thinking about are always the things that we end up feeling, and then how we feel determines a lot of those decisions that we make. And so ultimately, at the end of the day, like a leader has to have a vision for what they want to be able to accomplish and who they want to be. And if they can't actually check those boxes, they're going to be stuck. And so that's kind of like where the commonality between the ministry space and also the executive coaching space kind of took shape for me.
Yeah, I've really seen a shift in the whole way that people are really looking at success. People thought, the top of the pyramid was, multi-millions, and now I really do see a shift because people are putting, putting their family in there, and their values. And so that to me is a shift in how people are moving forward. And you've developed what you call the Teams method with, personal crisis and challenge that you faced, right? That made you develop this cornerstone of an approach, right?
Yeah, and it was really more along the lines of that, sometimes you find yourself in environments that just simply you're not supposed to be there. Like either the timestamp
Right.
is, has already checked out,
Yeah.
or you've just hit your leadership lid, and maybe your current assignment's too big for you, or maybe it's just significantly smaller than what you were supposed to be. But you do become the sum average of the five loudest voices in your life. You do become the sum average of the environments that you're in. And you have to be at a place to where you're willing to recognize that, you know, I love this quote, by the way. So there's a leadership guy, his name's Sam Chand. And I remember getting in his car one day. I was doing a leadership thing with him. He picked me up, and he said this. He said, people never change until the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of change.
Right. Exactly. Ah,
And
yeah. Yeah.
that's kind of where I was at, was just
Mhm.
like I recognized like, okay, I'm hitting my ceiling here. I know that I'm supposed to be doing something different. I don't know necessarily what it looks like yet, but I need to be willing to kind of open those doors and kind of peek through a little bit. And I'm so thankful that I did, so uh super powerful experience.
Maybe you could like open up, what is the Teams method? Like, you say teams method a lot, and what
Yeah.
simplified, what
Well,
would you say that is?
well, I mean, this thing was so powerful, like when we started to unlock it, that we decided that's why we named our company Teams.coach. It's not necessarily because we just work with teams, but we wanted to make sure that this methodology, that these five specific things that every single leader, once they're able to have an active dashboard with clear accountability and clear measurement, um, and clear goals, like we can move things. So here's what those five things are. Is number one is that every leader needs to know what their bullseye is. So what's the target? That's what the T stands for. The second one is the 3 points of engagement. So engagement's the E. So how are we leading ourselves? How are we leading the people that we're directly connected to? And then how are we actually engaging with our crowd? So important. The third one is clear action steps. Every leader needs to have clear action steps that are actually related to the target. You would not actually believe this, but over 68% of leaders report in that they spend the majority of their time on a day-to-day basis doing things that have absolutely nothing to do with actually producing results.
We believe it. Right.
Right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
so our optimized leaders, they actually are now involved in a system to where they're saying, my time's important, I'm important enough, my vision is important enough. So therefore I have a clear strategic plan with action steps that are holding me accountable to make sure that I'm actually hitting the bullseye, that the target is producing. Momentum is the M. Momentum is measured differently with our system. So our system identifies the things that are actually slowing us down instead of more things that we have to add onto our plate. We're not, momentum does not lead to burnout in our world. Momentum is produced by us recognizing the things that are slowing us down and by us having the authority to be able to stop those things to change those things and adjust. And then synergy is the last one. And here's the thing is that whatever we make visible is what we replicate. Have you ever heard that before?
No.
Yeah, whatever we make visible is what we replicate.
Yeah, I've heard it.
Synergy
I've heard
plays a
it in other words.
huge,
Yeah.
yeah,
Right.
so synergy plays a huge role in that. So synergy plays this idea of like whatever the best wins are that we have, let's go ahead and tell those stories. What are the best people that we have on our team? Let's tell those stories. Let's tell the stories about the things that we want to make visible so we can create more of those things. And it works.
You know, you've seen a lot of leaders right at their most vulnerable. Can you recount like a time that that leader's vulnerability just led through an incredible, unexpected breakthrough, and then how did that change your coaching philosophy?
Yeah, I've worked with a lot of leaders, and I mean we're coming up on, I've been working with leaders for over a couple decades now, and we have, and I've seen people go through financial failure. I've seen people go through moral failure. I've seen people go through leadership failure. In fact, the only thing that I've seen people come back from almost everything. The only thing that I have never seen a leader come back from is losing their cool in public.
Hmm,
Isn't that surprising?
yeah, it
Like I've
is.
seen
That
leaders
is.
I've seen leaders literally come back from everything, but somebody who humiliates somebody else in public or loses their
Yeah,
cool at another person in public,
right.
they they have some pretty big credibility chips that they've lost in that moment.
Yeah.
Um, but a really good example though of a guy um, he was actually a number two or a number three within an organization that we're currently coaching. They're a high level online retailer, and I wasn't necessarily ever assigned to him. Like I was assigned to come into the business to be able to help them optimize their revenue and to optimize their current internal systems and to make sure that their team is all in the right seats in the right place. So I think that that's like the strength of how we do coaching, by the way, is that our structure initiatives are the best in the industry. And so if you have people, if you don't know if you're getting the results that you want from your current infrastructure, your current business model, you need to be on our platform so you can get the guesswork out of how you've built your team. And so I'm working with them, and this leader just comes to life. He started off, had gone through a really, really rough divorce and had gone through a series of different compromises to where he just simply didn't see his value that he brought to the table. After working with him for a couple of weeks, so I recognized this guy was a strategic juggernaut. This guy was brilliant, and he just needed somebody to believe in him. And so now a year later, we've seen him turn around to where he's received a job promotion. He's writing a book, and he's actually coming onto our team as a fractional executive, helping serve other companies because that's how gifted this guy is. He
Right.
just needed somebody else to be able to see it.
Yeah, exactly. And the first thing you said, I mean, it's people's egos that could just say, "Hey, forgive me, I blew it. I was a little obnoxious," just to be able to, come clean. Because we all stumble. And, but, people are wearing these masks, right, in professional settings. And, and then when they drop that, they can shift and they can, make that change. Everybody's talking about success, right? And I think you need to have a little discussion about failure. What's the most painful professional failure that you've experienced? And then, of course, how did you shift that into growth?
Oh my word, that is a.
Isn't that a good one? No, that's a
I mean,
hard, but it's true.
well, because here's the thing is that like we've experienced. I think whenever failure is also accompanied with humiliation,
Uh,
oh man,
yeah,
that one's rough, and we
yeah,
see it a lot.
yeah.
Um, Surprisingly, because of my ministry background, I've seen this like in the church space as well, to where it's like we have a leader who might have gone through a rough season of life, maybe made some horrible decisions along the way, but then also on top of it, there's some public humiliation involved because of the way that a church decides to handle it. Um, I think failure never leads to any type of win unless there's grace and reconciliation involved in the process. And I
Right.
can't I can't express that enough. Is like at the end game, like if we're in the people business and if we're in the business of trying to develop people to become the best versions of themselves, sometimes we have to be okay with us looking at the bottom line and recognizing that there's bigger things that we're responsible for.
Right. Right. And seeing the big picture and let you get out of the humiliation. It- if you were to like encapsulate, like in a time capsule for future leaders, what one item would you include and why?
Oh my, I
I mean,
think if there's one thing to, well, I don't know how we can, I don't know how I'd put this into
one capsule.
one capsule,
Uh,
but but just like but if I was to sit down with you and saying, "Hey, Chris, this is the one thing that you're going to be talking about for the next 10 years, and it's the most important thing," I'd have to say emotional intelligence,
okay.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think still like we've experienced so many things over the last 3 years within leadership. Big disruptive events coming out of COVID, the introduction of AI,
Yeah.
um, huge DEI initiatives, a lot of disruptive, divisive things happening within the leadership space.
Mhm.
But but the one thing that kind of helps a leader scale and take everything to the next level to be able to open up their vision, help them be able to lead people is I tell you what, like if somebody could come alongside me and say, "Hey, listen, I want to invest in you so you can become a more emotionally capable leader, higher levels of emotional intelligence," that would be the thing that I would take with me.
Good one. That leads right to the next thing I was going to ask you personally. How do you maintain your own emotional equilibrium when you're working with high stake clients, or what practical practices do you, and what keeps you grounded, right?
Okay, so here's like what I'll say. So I'm gonna share with you my story, a little bit of a story here. So
Sure.
my son, he's 13 years old, and his name's Emerson, and he's an incredible musician. I'm a musician, but he's super talented. And so we went down to this guitar store in Lincoln over the weekend, and he really wants to pick up electric guitar. And so I'm weighing this decision, and I can't tell him yes yet. And here's why, is because with Emerson is ADD. He's got ADHD.
Right.
And so for him, it's like, if I can get this on the screen here, it's like there's all these different options happening in Technicolor all the time. Like he's like bouncing between the left and to the right.
Right.
And my job as being his dad is to be able to bring it in a little bit and to bring a construct for him to be able to manage his talent. And to saying, okay, great. So for this, yes, like I can't just say yes to guitar lessons. I have to say
Mhm.
yes to getting you there. I have to say yes to getting you home. I have to say yes with holding you accountable. I have to say yes to developing a Monday through Friday practice routine. I have to be willing to sit there with you and make sure that I help you stay on focus.
Right.
Um, and that's just my son, right?
Mm-hmm.
The more talent that you have as a leader, and this is where it's not you don't. I'm not asking you to admit that you're being prideful. That's not it. This is a different type of pride. I need you to be willing to I need you to be proud of yourself and for you to actually say to yourself, like, I'm a talented person. Therefore, I need the right constructs in my life in order to manage the talent.
Right.
The more talent that you have, the more constructs that you need to have in your life to be able to manage that talent. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yes.
And so
Yeah.
for me, like, so your question goes back to this idea of like, what do I have in place? Well, here's what I have in place. I have I have three different pastors that I meet with on a month-to-month basis to make sure that that my heart is in the right spot. I
Right.
have two executive coaches that are on my paid payroll that I pay for personal development. And I'm a reading machine. I read at least a book a week
Wow.
and then my podcasts on my commute in and all this stuff. And I think that those are the things that to where it's like again, it's like if I the higher level talent that you are, and if you want to raise your talent game, build the constructs in order to develop that talent. And then that's for me is like my vision. I want to be a disruptor in the coaching space. I want to be the best executive coaches for business leaders and entrepreneurs and C-level executives that can possibly be. So that I need to make sure that I'm managing myself well and leading myself well.
That's great. I mean, you're not too arrogant. I mean, people get arrogant because they're the top in their field and that you're consulting with pastors and other coaches and getting different opinions and staying open and learning. That's fabulous. And what you said about your son, I'm a musician, I'm a singer-songwriter and in my spare time, other life. And I remember when my mom, tried all these different instruments and I could see, she tried the violin and she tried, flamingo guitar and all these different things, which it was so important. And I appreciate your reluctance instead of just getting him that electric guitar. Where are you going to send him? Because each one of these have a trail, and the electric trail is a hard trail unless it's guided right.
Right.
And we have dad there because, and especially, I mean, he's probably a creative genius having ADHD and all those things going on. So I
Oh,
think
huge. Yeah.
you're right. And so then that's so important that that you're cultivating that, not just go, oh, yeah, you want this, you want that, and then he ends up losing that talent because he doesn't want to do it anymore or something, right? So that's unconventional, and there are a lot of there are a lot of executive coaches out there, right? And but what if you could say, what is it that makes you so unique? Why would my company or anybody else hire you?
I think our strength and our superpower is that, and it doesn't matter whether you're a small business or whether you're a large business, a lot of leaders, they don't necessarily know why they're not getting the results that they're getting. And they don't necessarily know that maybe their structure is their problem. And so that's what separates us a little bit differently is that um, we have a very exhaustive tech stack that we make sure that we equip every single leader in every big company with to make sure that they know where the gaps are that are on their team, and make sure that they know that we provide active coaching for everybody on the seat to make sure we get the guesswork out of right seats and right spaces, all that stuff. Um, so I think that that's really what separates us differently from everybody. Like I'm not gonna waste a lot of people's time just like getting into we start from the top. We start with talking about mindset, and then we start talking about your vision, making sure we can amplify your vision, taking it to the next level, getting you thinking bigger than you ever thought before, get you out of safe places. But then we spend so much time just talking about structure because here's the thing is that your vision is only as good as the percentage or the optimized chance of what you can execute with it. You
Right.
know, if there's
Right.
if there's no strategy put in place as far as like how you're going to execute and who you're going to execute with, then it's just an idea. That's
Right.
boring,
Yeah, it's
you
boring.
know?
Right. Right.
And so that's what we do. That's what we do differently. And so, but between our Teams.coach app and then our leadership assessment platform and our digital coaching for entrepreneur for enterprise teams, it's pretty fun, to be honest with you. It's like we've seen massive results from what we
Right.
do.
So tell me a little bit about what is this, the Gawker, Gawker traffic agency? That kind of like, what's about, what is that about?
Yeah, so so 60% dealing with big teams, 40% dealing with small businesses and entrepreneurs, other coaches and consultants. I got tired of losing clients, to be honest with you, because people in the small business sector about 4 or 5 years ago, with people coming to us and saying that they needed to choose between coaching and paying for somebody to do their SEO for their website.
Oh, gee.
You
Okay.
know,
Yeah.
it's like I can't pay for coaching anymore because I got to hire somebody to do our social media management.
Hmm.
So I went back to my team and I said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take our internal media department and we're going to provide free agency services for anybody who's getting coaching, who's a small business with us.
Hmm.
I
Nice.
never want anybody anymore to have to choose between what we consider catalytic services and essential services ever again.
It's good.
And that was 4 years ago, and this thing blew up because of that. And so now all of our agency services, we have a president over our agency division. It's called the Gawker Traffic. It's where we provide SEO, social media management, and blog writing, website copy, all that stuff. It's all under one roof for an incredibly affordable price. Um, but it's a way for us to be a little bit disruptive and for us to be able to have an opportunity to help people scale and grow faster than they've ever experienced before. And then they also have access to, to a coach. So we have several coaches that that we have connections with, and so it's convenient as well. So if somebody gets stuck, they can talk to somebody.
That's good. Boy, that sets you apart right there. I mean, because I know that for myself. I've developed a financial literacy program, and people, and then the marketing team fell away a few years ago. The pandemic blew everything apart, and then and they're like, okay, I didn't have that. So that I've seen so much of that. That is so, that is really cool. So, Mike, if you could design like like mandatory, like a school, all business schools need to be taught, what would you say they need to be taught?
Can you state that question again?
If you had a mandatory course for business schools and that isn't typically taught, right? What would that be and why?
Oh my gosh. Okay, since you're asking the question in 2024, we have to talk about AI.
Okay, there you go.
We have to.
Mhm.
Like it's really the conversation has to be to where
Yeah. Yeah.
AI is not replacing jobs, it's replacing people who aren't using AI.
Hmm. Right. I've had a few people from Silicon Valley call me up. My wife makes 400,000 and they're using AI, but they're a lot of them are being pushed out. And I don't really know all the details, so it's not like they don't use AI, but if they're not keeping up with it, and there's a huge shift for people. If you don't have that, you're out, right?
It is. It's because it's a superpower within the operational space now.
And so, so then you teach them how to do that, or that's mandatory. That is a mandatory class that we're going to have in our school.
Yeah, like for example, even in several of our Fortune 500 companies, like big retail giants that you've heard of, um, and even some big entertainment firms that, companies that you've heard of, we're being hired to help them integrate AI into their team operations.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So to look at their optimized process and making sure that they figured out ways to integrate and to optimize it.
Well, there it is right there. That totally sets you apart because that is not really being done a whole lot yet, right? So tell everybody how they can get in contact with you and learn more about what you're doing.
Yeah, so check us out on the web. It's www.teams.coach. That's teams.coach. And also make sure just to find me on LinkedIn, Michael King, from teams.coach. And then also I'm on Instagram and Facebook as well. But check out the website. Like we have our own podcast as well. So the Level Up Leader podcast. And it's awesome to be able to connect with you here today, Chris. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Mike. And I got a couple more little personal questions for you, and then we'll wrap up. How has your relationship with spirituality evolved leaving, say, a traditional ministry? Or do you feel like you've encapsulated that spirit and then have put it into action? Instead of reading about it, you're walking it. How would you encapsulate that?
It's a little bit more personal now. I think, coming out of, so when I was, 19, 20 years old, went off to Bible college and then immediately got um, thrown into the midst of, full-time ministry, being a Christian recording artist, um, and being in the middle of it. The lovely part about it is that I remember the day that I got my first full-time music job and I went into my professor's office and I was, I was teared up and I was like so excited because I was like, I'm going to be able to do what I love for the rest of my life.
Right.
So
Right.
excited. And, but at 20 years into it, when you're getting your, when you're getting your financial support, when you're getting your emotional support, when you're getting your friend circle, when you're getting your spiritual support, when you're getting everything about who you are as a person from one single place, it's easy for you to forget why you're doing what you're doing.
Yep.
And and so that's for me, that was so important for me to be able to recognize that. So now I'm actually gifting back a position back to my local church. And to where it's like I just want to be able to be more impactful and more meaningful to where this is,
Yes. Yes.
and this is about people, this is about, I one of the things you'll hear from me all the time is that I truly believe that everybody deserves the opportunity to experience hope, and hope's an engine for me. And so I would say that that's a little bit more of my answer. It became a little bit more personal just because it's not something I was getting paid to do anymore, but it was something that was more of a reflection of my faith.
Beautiful. Night. Well put. So if you went back, and I had that same experience. I was on a record label and I just felt like I had hit, the ceiling. It was just too much, even though I was singing about Jesus, right? There was too much vanity inside of me, out being honest, that it had to shift it to make it more powerful. Right before the pandemic, we started a song contest called Songs with Purpose. So people that wrote could use that gift to make songs that change the world and less vanity. And that, it was right, we had it set in the pandemic. It's still there. It'll come back, but using those gifts and they're constantly changing. And then you bring it right back in, to your community. I think that's so beautiful. I could really relate to that. So if you could go back and whisper one truth into the ear of your younger self, right, just starting out the journey, what would you say?
Oh my gosh. Well, I think I think I think I'll share this with you is that maybe not necessarily. Um, so my wife and I, we've been married for 26 years, and her dad, his name was Dennis. And I remember coming to him one time with, and I think it was had to do with a tour that we were about ready to go on as an artist. And I was wondering whether I should do it or not. And so I went to him and we were chatting one day um, and, and his thing was, is that he just wanted to create a safe place for me to recognize that I could, I could chase my dreams and not have to worry about failure. And so his thing was just consistently, you know, make decisions in which you've left nothing on the table, no regrets, and things will work out. And I think that that's for me is like, especially with the way that I grew up, like understanding truly, you know, just just not playing it safe, you know, and and being willing to take that chance.
Exactly. There you go. Using that faith there, right? Michael, it's been an honor and pleasure to talk to you, and I really appreciate you coming by here.
Hey, thanks so much, Chris. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Michael, your insights today have been nothing short of transformative. You've shown us that leadership is not just about steering organizations, but about navigating the complex terrain of human potential. To our listeners, remember that true agility in leadership comes from a deep understanding of oneself and an unwavering commitment to growth. As you face your own crossroads and opportunities to pivot, carry with you the wisdom shared today. This is Money 911, where we don't just talk about success, we uncover the human stories behind it. Until next time, keep pushing the boundaries, embracing vulnerability, and leading with both clarity and heart. There's so much to learn about healthy money. I hope today's discussion brings you one step closer to securing and protecting your future. So you can get started on the right foot, go to meetwithchrismiller.com and schedule your free financial fitness strategy session. Thank you for listening, and please subscribe to Money 911 so you don't miss our next episode, which includes health, wealth, and peace of mind.
The power of purpose. Doing well by doing good. The power of purpose. Doing well by doing good. The power to bless lives inside of